Video Outhouse will now take a look at last week. Will you just flush it already? It's really gross.
Uh-oh. I know where this is going.
You just give them a week and they'll review it. Here's Week in Review with Comic Book Man and Bo Cephas.
Hey folks, how you doing? Comic Book Man here. Welcome once again to my Video Outhouse. It's time for Week in Review. And this is the Week in Review for September the 22nd, 2010. This is your bookend to Shipshape. If you watch Shipshape for this same date, that's our projecting into the week. This is our look back at the same week. Week's just about over with, and we're going to cover some of the highlights of this week.
Kismet!
We're going to cover comics, we're going to cover media, we're going to cover wrestling, we're going to cover MMA. First thing up, though, we're going to look at the books for the week. Big book for this week was, of course, part 1 of 3, which was the book of the week last week on Shipshape. Bo, tell us about 3.
3 is something that Jonathan Hickman's been working on for a while. See the 4 guys on the cover here? See the Fantastic Four?
Those 4.
Okay, when this storyline is over with, one of those 4 won't be around. They'll be dead.
Will they be dead, or just gone, or taking a
They'll
vacation,
be
or
gone
taking a siesta?
for quite some time.
Okay, so not necessarily dead.
I would
but
imagine
away.
probably about 18 months.
Okay, but away.
Yeah.
Okay. Also this week was Matt Fraction and Mr. Ferry on Thor. They're taking over the book finally.
Long-awaited launch of Matt Fraction and Pasquale Ferry's Thor. This issue was beautiful. The art was incredible. The storyline was very effective. There's a reveal at the end of this thing, which is like, wow, I didn't know he knew how to do stuff like this. There's also something cool about this issue, and this is the plan for the book. Everything that takes place on Earth,
yes,
regular 8-panel, 6-7-panel spreads. Everything takes place on Asgard, 2-page spreads, all the time. But this book is gorgeous. This book is literally gorgeous. It's the best looking book of the week I've seen.
You should pick it up.
I did.
Also this week was The Incredible Hulk. World War Hulks is over with, and Fall of the Hulks, and Hulks have dinner, and all that stuff. It's over with.
Hulks go to New York.
And Hulks go to New York, and now we're starting a new chapter in the life of the Incredible Hulk, and it begins...
Alias creators Jeff
The
Parker,
Red Hulk, I should say,
Gabriel
the Red-
Hardman. Well, actually, Red Hulk is part of this. Red Hulk will be joining the Avengers because Thunderbolt Ross has to atone for the fact that he's been a jerk since he's become the Red Hulk. Well, this is the first issue by the brand new team replacing Jeff Loeb and Ed McGuinness. Jeff Parker, Gabriel Hardman. This book was actually pretty good too. This week, most of the stuff on the rack behind me was pretty good stuff.
It was a good week.
It was a pretty good week.
It's a good week. Also this week, we talk about this in Marvel news for this week. Avengers. This is a big deal.
This issue is amazing. You've got this storyline going on. This 2-page spread.
Which let's not beat into the ground because we did this in Marvel news already.
If you want to know what Marvel's planning for the next 18 months,
It's right here.
it's all there.
Seriously, it's all there.
Everything.
It's
the
all
Black
there.
Panther thing we talked about in Marvel news, it's there. Galactus being screwed up in that issue of Fantastic Four, it's there. Everything for the next 18 months of the Marvel Universe is right here on this 2-page spread.
Which makes this a big issue of the Avengers.
And when this sucker sells it, you go, oh, I didn't know about that. That's what
DC did publish books this week.
Yes,
DC
they
published
did.
books this week. One of the things they published was this. Superman Batman number 76, which takes place just at the time and afterwards on Final Crisis, of course, where Darkseid kills Batman, and we all cried about that until we knew he was coming back.
Well, of course he was coming back. But
There he is. He's dead on the cover.
This is a single issue. Judd Winick, the art actually is pretty cool. It's by some guy I never heard of. But this is when Superman learns that Bruce Wayne happens to be dead.
Mm-hmm.
Which, he'd been dead for a while, but we were like, well, what does Superman think about all this? This is the issue where you find out. And it's actually a pretty well-drawn issue. And a well-written story. Judd Winick is actually growing on me. Winick is the kind of guy who was hot for a bit, and then he kind of got really, really cool, and now he's sort of working his way back up to being... I don't think he's going to get to the A-list point anytime soon, but he's probably a high B-lister at this point.
Okay. DC also published G.I. Combat this week, Haunted Tank. We should have picked that up. It was actually a pretty good story.
Phil Winslade art, cool.
Star Spangled War is going to be the next one, which is coming next week, and then I think that's it for
That's
War
it.
Month.
That's it for War Month. In fact, this is a cool week. This is a really short week, right?
It's a very short week this week. The week coming up, not the week we're talking about now, but the week coming up is going to be a really, really thin week. There's not a lot coming out.
It's like a
week.
fifth week thing without a fifth week
Check out
event.
But check out Shipshape for that. Yes, check out Shipshape for
And
that.
it's your chance to catch up on stuff you didn't pick up before.
And that's our review of the comic books that came out the week of the 22nd. Now, of course, the big news this week, the big news in comics was the death of Not the Wildcats, but Wildstorm. Wildstorm no longer exists. DC shut the imprint down along with Zuda Comics. They shut them down officially, who are on life support and just online, but they're not online anymore. They're done, finished, over with also. But Wildstorm is dead.
Now you can check out the DC story, the DC News video to get the full story. But
Yes.
he's holding up this copy of Wildcats version 3.0 for a reason. This is what Wildstorm was supposed to be doing.
This and Authority.
And Authority.
The original Authority
Not-
and Planetary
Right.
and Ex Machina.
All the stuff that had an edge to it before Paul Levitz basically screwed it by cutting the edge off a little at a time. This Wildcats thing here, which will be, I think 2 issues now is the last issue. This is not what the Wildstorm universe was supposed to be about. This book is crap. Total crap.
But if you buy this at home, it's a wonderful book,
Oh,
and you've spent money well spent.
This book should have stayed this book. This book was very, very well written. It was very, very well drawn. It was written for adults. This book was written by the average, ordinary comic book person who didn't buy Vertigo. Wildstorm was supposed to be an alternative to Vertigo, magical stuff like that. This is supposed to be the science fiction comic book.
Well,
version of that stuff.
Wildstorm was bought. DC bought Wildstorm because they wanted to have in their stable
3 things.
In their stable, they wanted to have an imprint, not like Vertigo, but would serve the purpose of doing alternative superhero stuff, not Vertigo type stuff. Okay, not what am I thinking of? Alternative comics type stuff, but the type of stuff Wildstorm was doing as part of Image, alternative superheroes with an edge. I never personally, I've talked about this at length on Facebook and online. I never had much use for Wildstorm, but I think the last best chance Wildstorm had of making something of itself was the time that crossed over between DC buying it and the very end of its time at Image, when you had Warren Ellis doing. Was he doing Planetary at Image? Was that at Image or was that at
No,
DC?
that was a Wildstorm book. He was doing Stormwatch.
Okay,
and he was doing Authority.
which is what I was getting to. Stormwatch was when they were at Image, okay, and that's what led into Authority. The last best chance Wildstorm had of doing something was that time. You had Authority, you had Planetary, you had this, you had Ex Machina, you had all this stuff going on, and they were starting to coalesce into a really, really groundbreaking, almost, type of storytelling for alternative superheroes, and 2 things killed it. Paul Levitz, who gutted Authority,
Any edge that was around, Paul Levitz killed. Now, Wildstorm was
and the other thing that killed it, before you get into that, the other thing that killed it was Jim Lee, who took his eye off the ball and did other stuff. When all this gutting was going on, guess who was drawing Batman? That year-long arc, the Hush arc? Jim Lee was off doing Hush while all that was going on, and he wasn't running Wildstorm.
I mean, DC bought Wildstorm for 3 reasons. One was the coloring process, because they were doing digital coloring that DC wasn't doing. They got it. 2 was to get Jim Lee working on a book, and the 3rd was to get Alan Moore, because Alan Moore at that point had said he'd never work for DC again, and so they created this little firewall where Alan Moore talked to the people at Wildstorm and never talked to people like Paul Levitz. The problem was Levitz has an old school mentality is what comics are concerned about, and so Levitz was taking books that were already done, going to the printer or already printed, and tweaking them and screwing them around. Mark Millar was doing Authority at this point. He was taking issues that were actually done and changing them before the books got on the rack. Wildstorm has been dead for about 10 years.
No, not that long. About 6 or 7. About 6 or 7. You're going back 6, 7 years when all that happened.
But all DC did this week is they basically put the last bullet in the head of it.
Yeah.
Wildstorm been dead for a while.
Wildstorm has been dead for a while, and it's too bad, because I really think they had a moment there where they could have gone and become something and ran off and had a look and a feel and a point of view that would have been startlingly different from everything else at DC, and instead it just got blanded out. Also this week, we've got a little bit of media news. Superman, the Superman movie, has got 5 directors, which we covered this in media news, but go over it real quick.
Christopher Nolan, Jonathan Liebsman, Tony Scott, Zack Snyder, Duncan Jones. There's supposedly a 6th guy that hasn't been named yet. He's given the list of the directors to the people at Warner Brothers, and he's going to make his decision on who he wants to direct the Superman film in a couple of weeks.
Okay,
Yeah.
There's more on that in media news with JR. Also, in media news, we talked about Black Widow. Marvel wants to greenlight, Disney wants to greenlight a Black Widow film.
So they're basically talking to Scarlett Johansson, who's got a contract to do the Avengers film. She's also got a contract to do the next Iron Man film, but not a contract to do a Black Widow film per se. So they're trying to get that hooked up. Also this week, Ed Norton, for the final time, talked about the fact that he doesn't have a grudge against Marvel for kicking him out of the Avengers movie. But we did learn this week that Mark Ruffalo revealed that the Hulk in the Avengers movie will be all motion capture.
Good idea. Good idea. And in wrestling and in MMA, Jericho, which we mentioned last week in Week in Review, Jericho, who is no longer with the company.
Jericho's contract ends at the end of September. He's
Yeah.
probably going to re-sign with the WWE, but not before taking at least a 3-month vacation.
Okay.
Because he's got a DVD and an album to sell, and he wants to work a lighter schedule. And at this particular point in time, the WWE would probably give it to him because they're kind of running out of healthy wrestlers.
You talk about this more in wrestling news,
Yes.
don't you, with Uncle Pete?
Oh, with Uncle Pete.
And a last story is
Chael Sonnen, who had a very good fight for Anderson Silva, he did a
In
secondary
UFC.
in UFC, he had a secondary drug test. It revealed he had an unusually high amount of testosterone in his system. He has been suspended by the California Athletic Commission for a year. He is going to appeal in December, but the rematch that he was planning on having with Anderson Silva in February is not likely to happen because even if he is cleared, he won't be able to fight Silva in February, and so Silva's going to be fighting Vitor Belfort instead on January the 1st, the annual New Year's Eve, New Year's Day show in Las Vegas for UFC.
Okay, that's it. We're done. We're finished. We're out of here. That's the Week in Review. Stop off at the store's website to check out other Week in Reviews. And until next time, this is Comic Book Man
And Bo.
saying bye.